I'm 78 now, and there are mornings when I wake up and need a few seconds to remember where I am. Not because my mind is gone, not yet, but because the days have started to blur together. The walls look the same. The light comes in the same way. And most days, no one calls my name. I used to think getting old would feel like some kind of finish line, like I'd finally understand everything, finally feel settled. But that's not how it works. You don't arrive anywhere. You just keep going. And if you're not careful, you carry certain things with you the whole way. Quiet things, small things, the kind that don't seem dangerous at the time. If I'm honest, the hardest part of being this age isn't the aches or the tiredness. It isn't even the loneliness, though that has a way of settling in your chest like a stone. No, the hardest part is realizing who I've been living with all these years. Myself. And I don't mean that in some clever way. I mean it plainly. The man I became. The one I listened to without question. He's the one who made most of my decisions. And I trusted him. I trusted him when I probably shouldn't have. When I was younger, late 20s, early 30s, I had this constant voice in my head. It sounded reasonable, calm, practical. It told me things like, "You'll have time later," or "This is more important right now." It helped me justify long hours at work, missed dinners, postponed trips. It told me I was doing the right thing, being responsible, being a good man. And I believed it. I had a wife back then. Her name was Mira. She had this quiet way about her, never demanded much, never complained loudly. But she noticed things, I could tell. The way she'd pause when I said I'd be late again. The way she'd look at me when I checked my watch during diner. We used to sit on the balcony in the evenings. No phones back then, just tea and whatever breeze the night gave us. She'd talk about small things, neighbors, something she read, a memory from her childhood. And I'd nod along, half listening, my mind already drifting back to work. There was always something more important waiting. That's what I told myself. We had a son a few years later, Arjun. I remember holding him for the first time, feeling something shift in my chest. For a while, I thought maybe I'd do things differently, be more present, come home earlier, sit on the floor and play. And I did, for a little while. But that voice came back, quiet as ever. Just a few more years, it said. Build something first, secure the future. So I stayed late at the office, took extra responsibilities, said yes to everything that would move me forward. Promotions came, recognition came, people respected me. I became someone others relied on. And at home, I became someone who was often missing, not completely gone, just not there in the ways that mattered. Arjun grew up in pieces, it seems now. School events I couldn't attend. Stories I only half heard. I knew the broad strokes, his grades, his interests, but I missed the details, the small changes, the moments that build a relationship. Mira kept everything running. She never made a scene about it, but over time, something between us grew. Quiet, not angry, not broken in an obvious way, just distant. We stopped sitting on the balcony. I didn't notice when that happened, or maybe I did and told myself we'd get back to it someday. There was always a someday. Years passed like that. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I told myself I was doing it for them, for our future, for stability. That voice, It was always there, guiding me, reassuring me, "You're doing the right thing." And I listened. The turning point wasn't dramatic. No big argument. No sudden collapse. It was smaller than that. Quieter. Mira got sick. At first it seemed manageable. Something we could deal with. Doctor visits, medications, adjustments. I told myself I'd be there more. And for a short time, I was. I sat beside her in hospital rooms, held her hand, listened to her breathe. But even then, that voice crept in. "You can't neglect everything else," it said. "Balance it." So I went back to work. Not fully, but enough. Enough to keep things moving. Enough to feel like I wasn't falling behind. She never asked me to stay. That's the thing that still sits with me. She never asked. One evening, I came home later than I should have. Not terribly late, just later than I had said. She was lying in bed, awake. The room was dim. I remember the sound of the ceiling fan more than anything. She looked at me for a long moment. Not angry, just tired. And she said, very softly, "You're still listening to that voice, aren't you?" I didn't know what she meant at the time. Or maybe I did and didn't want to admit it. I brushed it off, said something about responsibilities, about how things would settle soon. She nodded, turned her face away. We didn't talk much after that. A few months later, she was gone. Just like that. A quiet ending to a quiet distance that had been growing for years. The house felt different immediately. Not just emptier, but colder. And everything else was just like something essential had been removed. Our June had already moved away by then. Leftover, work, his own life. We spoke occasionally, still do, though not often. Our conversations are polite, surface level. There's no anger between us, just a kind of unfamiliarity, as if we never quite learned how to know each other. After Mira passed, that voice didn't go away. That's what surprised me. I thought maybe grief would silence it, but it just changed its tone. "Keep going," it said. So I did. I filled my days with tasks, small things, errands, work I didn't really need to do anymore. Anything to avoid sitting still for too long. Because when it gets quiet, really quiet, that's when the other voice comes in. The one I ignored for most of my life. It asks simple questions. Why did you think there would always be more time? I don't have good answers. Now, at 78, time doesn't stretch out the way it used to. Where were you? It feels thin, fragile, like something that could run out without much warning. And I see things more clearly. Not everything, but enough. I see that the biggest mistake I made wasn't working too hard or missing a few dinners or even being absent in certain moments. It was trusting that voice without ever questioning it. The one that always said, later. Later is a dangerous word. It sounds harmless, responsible even, but it steals things quietly, piece by piece, until one day, there's nothing left to postpone. No balcony evenings to return to. No small conversations waiting for you. No second chance to sit beside someone and just be there. I still talk to Mira sometimes, not out loud, just in my head. I tell her things I should have said years ago, about how much those evenings meant, about how I wish I had listened more, rushed less. I don't know if it matters now. Maybe it does in some small way. For me, at least. If there's anything I've learned, too late perhaps, it's that the person you spend the most time with isn't your spouse or your children or your friends. It's yourself. And if you let that inner voice go unchallenged, it can lead you somewhere you never meant to go. A life that looks right from the outside, but feels incomplete when you finally stop and look at it. I'm not saying ignore responsibility. Life requires that. But there's a difference between doing what needs to be done and hiding behind it. I hid behind it because it was easier than asking harder questions, easier than sitting still and really seeing what was slipping away. Now, most evenings, I sit by the window. Not a balcony anymore, just a small chair, a cup of tea that gets cold before I finish it. I watch the light fade. Sometimes I think about all the times I said, "Not today." All the moments I pushed aside, thinking I'd come back to them. You don't come back. That's the truth of it. If this means something to you, if you recognize that voice I'm talking about, just listen a little more carefully to the quieter one underneath it. The one that doesn't shout. The one that asks you to stay a little longer, to look up, to be present. Because one day you'll be sitting where I am, and the only person left to answer to will be yourself.